Welcome, guys, to the Metaforecast,
Speak Easy with Haroon.
and we are with one of my favorite poets in terms of the subject of love. We are with Karim Leo Poetry.
Hi.
How are you? You good?
I'm okay, I'm good.
So I remember meeting you at Speak Easy, which is Meredith's event, and what kind of like gravitated me to you was your love for writing in notebooks, and unconventionally, you don't write like from like the start of the line to the end of the line. You kind of format it in a way where the words actually take shape, which is actually interesting for me. And then also just having this almost kind of like calming aura when you share pieces, and obviously they're very well written. So yeah, that's one of my earliest experiences. I don't know how you met Karim.
So I think we interacted on social media,
Yeah.
like not directly saying hey, hi, but I think I would have seen your stuff, particularly your Twitter feeds. You have like these really nice bite-sized tweets, or now it's X. But we met at Kid and Nancy, or Jamal, as he's also known, his night Extra Second, London.
A while back.
The one that's in Bethnal Green.
Yeah.
On a Saturday night. So we met at one of Kid and Nancy's nights, and that's when I got to sort of hear your work. And again, what sort of drew me was you write in notepads, and also checking your poetry online. I think even on Instagram. Your stuff's really well written.
Thank you.
I think because there's many different ways in which people in the poetry scene come at it. A lot of the times, not a lot of the times, but sometimes it's more that people perform and they exude a certain like way of projecting themselves that is sort of primary, and then the sort of words come. I feel like, to me, you're a page poet who then comes and sort of reads.
Yeah, I try to like be a bit of in the blend of the both.
Yeah.
And I try to incorporate my work onto the stage in not in a theatrical way, but in a more spoken word kind of method. Yeah.
What's we were talking about this outside. Like you've got so many inspirations and a lot of favorite poets, but the one that comes up all the time is Warsan Shire. I'm gonna butcher the name. Warsan Shire.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about like how?
Yeah, Warsan Shire, I came across her work in 2012, and I was just blown away. I was bereft. She writes about trauma, she writes about immigration, the concept of home, sometimes love, and also womanhood. And her work is really raw and authentic. And when I was reading her poetry, I was like, wow, I would love to, ask her millions of questions, because the way she writes is such a unique way for me. And also, I've been like I've bought all her collections. I know everything, not everything, but I know pretty much everything about there is to know about Warsan Shire's work. And I've met her in person as well, which is an honor and a privilege.
You just showed me pictures. Which is really cool.
Which is an honor and a privilege in itself. She had a performance at South Bank Centre in 2021, and it was just an honor to meet her.
What kind of conversations did you have with her when you had that time with her?
Funny enough, I was just saying like how amazing she performed, because she had like a set. She was there for like 1 hour, and she had a set. She read new poems from her book that she published, and
was this at South Bank last year?
Yeah,
I didn't get to go, but I saw on my socials there were people who travelled even from like a lot of the Birmingham crew travelled to go see her.
Because she rarely performs, and she was back in the UK because she's originally British poet, but she lives now in California, but she rarely performs as well. So it was just like everyone was excited to see her perform. And the questions I had for her was like, you're amazing. I've been following you for a long time. And me and her actually have an interesting connection because she was born in Kenya and I'm from Uganda, and Kenya and Uganda are right next to each other. And as well, her birthday is August the 1st and my birthday is August the 2nd. So we have so many parallels, we have so many similarities. And I was just talking to her about that as well.
You shared something really interesting about her as an author. Like Beyonce's actually been reading her work on Lemonade. Like
she's collaborated with Beyonce.
Yeah.
She basically had an opportunity to feature her poems in Beyonce's album at the time,
Cool.
Lemonade. And I think she didn't want to be like in the front cover, in the front seat of the camera. So Beyonce was the one that was reciting her poems in Lemonade.
Which is kind of crazy because like usually the poet is reciting their poetry, but to get a celebrity of Beyonce's caliber and status to like read a poet, not even from America, from the UK,
yeah,
is amazing, right?
It is incredible.
That's actually really cool. Like the only other way I've seen that in the sense is when like Sophia Thacker on Now's album, or Wretch having, you know, George the Poet on his, which is kind of cool, but that's not the same as like actually having someone read something from their catalogue, which is actually really cool. What is your journey for poetry? Like, how did you come across writing? Was it in school? Was it through books?
Funny enough, I used to hate poetry.
I always say this.
I had so much antagonism for poetry.
Why?
Because in school I was badly taught poetry. School wasn't the best place for literature for me. I found it very difficult and awkward trying to understand poems, trying to understand what they mean. And the teacher I had as well was very difficult and harsh. And I sat next to all the smart people, but I was one of those people who was like, why am I here? Why am I learning this stuff? So poetry in school was a no-go zone. Yeah. And then I left school, and then I did my own research. And one day I was working for London Stock Exchange. That's the birthplace of my poetry. So I was working for London.
I've not heard that before from anyone.
I've heard this.
I want to hear more.
Yeah, I know you.
I was working for London Stock Exchange. I was there my role was a project manager. So I was working with the IT kind of people, and I was designing things for them. And then during my lunch break, I was like, I had this epiphany, like, why not do something creative, like poetry? So I must have wrote my first ever poem during that lunch break, and it took me like half an hour. And then I sent it to my colleague called Hannah, who is the first person ever to read my poetry. And it was through Hannah that I was encouraged to write more, because Hannah really liked my poems, and they were very short at the time, and they made sense. And I thought, looking back now, my first ever poems are cringe, but Hannah loved my poems, and she's like, you need to keep writing poetry. Like, this is your thing. You're quite good at this. And then from that, I continued to write poems. I went to university and I studied English literature. And from there, I wanted to, it was either I write a book or I go into journalism. And then I wrote a book. My first ever book was published in 2018. And then from that year as well, I was performing as well. I discovered the London poetry scene. And my cousin as well invited me to perform at her wedding.
Oh, beautiful.
So I did a love poem at my cousin's wedding, which was one of the biggest highlights at the time. That's like one of my earliest performances as well. And it was really nerve-wracking to perform in front of family, to perform in front of people that I'm very close to and that love me, but they don't see me in this kind of capacity. This is a very unique space.
Yeah.
So it was nerve-wracking, and I got through that, and I was like, if I can get through this, I can get through anything. So then I ventured into the London scene, and then I discovered other poets, and I kept on going to these open mics, and here we are.
Here we are. What was your... Okay, so obviously we've all been in the scene, and we've all had the experiences with, like, you know, performing at our first open mic. Like, for you, I mean, I think when you were performing out at Speakeasy, you just seemed to have it all together, like, in terms of how you performed. Like, did that come with time, or was that just how you've always been? Okay.
I think it comes with time.
Yeah.
Performing is an art form. Performing is a communication. It's also a way of showing the world who you are.
Yeah.
So it comes with time. It's not an easy practice. And for me as well, I was really nervous when I performed the first time. I stumbled on my words. I was like hesitating on stage. I didn't know what to do. I even wanted to get off the stage at one point,
really?
But then I was like, I need to stay on the stage. I'll get the nerves will settle down and everything will be fine.
Because also you're also someone who's not shared to share work. So when I look at your IG, you've got just like rows and columns of, like, you know, your poetry there, and you've built up quite a following over time. Has that, because obviously you, would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm a bit of both. It depends on the social settings.
Yeah, because you also come across also a bit of an enigma as well, because you're very mysterious as well. Like,
definitely. Do
you feel like you're more open to? Do you feel yourself coming out more as a person with poetry now?
I think poetry reveals who you are.
Yeah.
If you write from an authentic place, it reveals who you are. It's like a painting. If you paint, it's gonna highlight what's in your heart, what's in your head.
For sure.
So for me, poetry, I find it so easy to just be myself, to write about life experiences, to write about things that, real life lived experiences, to write about anything that, you know, inspires me. Things are abstract as well.
Do you think, because you've got quite a following, and I know you've done a book before, are you thinking about doing a book again? Because we were just talking about Haroon's book.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the same. Is what your thoughts about basically creating and publishing more work, and would you just stick to poetry, or are there other modes of expression like prose or anything else that you want to explore?
I have the desire to use my poetry to help other people. And in that capacity, in that kind of format, it requires me to produce a book, or to produce even an audio, or to produce something related to multimedia format.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I remember one of my highlights for you, was it last year when you headlined at a Kindred? Was that last year or this year?
It was last year.
Oh, last year.
It's my first one.
Yeah, that was a highlight for me, for you. Like, it's not like, because it was a highlight for me to watch you because it was your first set, but also because I've known you at that point for a certain amount of time, I was happy for you to, like, that people were getting to see you for the first time. Like, how did you feel about your first
I was so excited.
headline?
I was exuberant. it felt like it was the right time to headline, and it felt like things were just all aligning. At my headline set, I had a poem about what would I do if I was Prime Minister of London.
Which went down really well. Yeah.
And I also had a poem about alternate realities and like how my life would be different if I did different things. And then I had also another poem about, I think love, along the lines of love. Yeah, which is one of my favorite things to write about.
I think it's not a Karim set without at least a love piece in the mix.
And what, just out of curiosity, because every poet has certain things that they love to sort of express themselves and write about. What is it about love? And is it just romantic love, or does it expand beyond that into all other sort of manifestations of love?
Love is such a grand and expansive subject, and I just love how, for example, it can bring people together and divide people.
How would you say it divides people?
How would I say it divides people? Because when, for example, when someone dies, that is a loved person by all these members, let's say it's a family, let's say that this person has died and they have specifically chosen this one person in the family to inherit something. And all these other members, all of a sudden, become, they have enmity, they have a bit of jealousy, they have a bit of, they're like, why is this person choosing this person? So it can bring people together and it can divide people in that sense, in a family capacity.
Yeah, I also like. I feel like people's love for something divides in the way like they might have two different approaches about, for that love, in terms of like, if it's love for, if it's love for people and to serve some sort of injustice, like and to correct it, two people might go about it differently. Like some people might protest, some people might go through legal channels, some people might do something that's like not cool, but it's in the name of that thing.
Yeah, it's a superpower, but it's wrongly used. On a broader scale, it's wrongly used, and it requires a lot of learning and unlearning. Like, you can't just wake up one day and love someone. You have to kind of learn to love someone. You have to kind of go through some sort of period of time where you get to know this person. And then you begin to love this person because you're seeing a bigger picture.
So I want to go more into this because you're really touching upon stuff that is resonating, because I've had to reflect a lot on love. By any chance, have you read All About Love by Bell Hooks?
Yes.
And would you say it's definitely influenced your outlook on love? Because it has influenced mine.
It has. It has, definitely, yeah. I've read a few books that are quite similar as well.
I'll ask for those recommendations after we wrap up today. But I think in my adult life, one of the biggest transitions in terms of learning that I ever had to do was moving away from looking at love as a feeling, especially in a romantic context, and actually realizing that love it's an action and it's a choice. Like, we choose to love people. Like that thing where people say, oh, you can't help how you feel. I think those chemical rushes, I think they're very fleeting. But I do think that, I think that love is an acquired skill.
Yeah.
It's one that you acquire. Like, I was talking to my partner about, like, we were having a chat about relationships. And she was sort of saying to me that I don't think it's a failure of a relationship if it doesn't last super long. And I agree with her. But then where we sort of took the conversation was that I think if you want to be having a longer term partnership with a significant romantic other, that requires a certain mindset, and it requires the willingness to acquire that skill set to be able to actually ride it out and sort of do it, because it requires coexisting with another human being when things aren't all heady and sort of honeymoon-like and super exciting. And it's about, like, in the same way, you know, we sort of go out and we party and everything, but then when we go home and we actually have to learn to sit on our own, and that's a very difficult, not an impossible, but it's a difficult skill. Because you're actually like, okay, no distractions. I think it's a similar thing in longer term romantic relationships. Like when we look at the pandemic and people actually had to spend time with their partners and not be working like a 60-hour, 70-hour work week and having all the other things that put them away, where you only sort of check in very infrequently and going, hang on, I'm not sure I can do this. Like, I think that's where what you said about love, it really comes into it.
Love is hard work. I feel like a lot of relationships are not based on love. They're based on, okay, we get along, we have these things in common, let's get together. It's not based on love in the sense that, okay, we're gonna get together, we're gonna build something. It doesn't mean that it has to last forever, but we're gonna build something that is gonna be meaningful, is gonna be impactful, is gonna have such a resonating, you know, substantial impact on both of our lives. And that's where love comes in. That's where the hard work comes in. Because love is commitment, love is sacrifice, love is forgiveness, love is kindness, love is consideration, understanding. It's so many things that it's hard work.
It's all those things, but those things are not in a vacuum in isolation. So, for example, being kind or being understanding when you might be running on empty because of what's going on, maybe a work situation, or maybe you've got something challenging going on with, you know, your sort of immediate biological family. That's where it really comes in, is that the longer you're with someone, someone may be going through grief, another one might be going through career challenges, and to be able to sort of, like, I think you have to actually be able to dig into the reserves really deep, and sometimes scrape the barrel to find, you know, pieces of kindness, understanding and empathy for your partner.
And a lot of time it doesn't work is because of communication. A lot of relationships don't work because of communication. When people are going through things, whether it's grief, whether, you know, they've had to change careers, whether they're, you know, they've got something that they need to build their confidence on, and they're not talking about it. So communication is one of the things that requires a relationship to stand. And when that's not there, relationship is gonna,
dude, it's
gonna go like this.
Dude, it's like Jenga.
Yeah.
The blocks just come tumbling down.
And then love is like, love and communication, they just are in sync. You can't have...
You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know how much everyone speaks from experience, but I'll speak from experience in the, you know, I'm currently in a relationship, and, you know, someone I've known for 3 years, and there has been sort of on-off, stop-start elements. And I think the big, you know, heading into sort of almost 3 years now of knowing my partner, communication is a huge thing, because it's so easy to talk. Talking's not the same as communicating.
No, it's not, yeah.
It isn't the same. Like, talking can be filling the gaps of silence, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're communicating information or even trying to tease information out of your partner. If you don't communicate, I feel that a lot of the times there are assumptions that can be made from both parties, and you can almost, when assumptions are made, just relationships can basically fall apart, or there can be distance, and there can be a lot of different stuff that happens.
And also with communication, there has to be like a mutual ground, because you won't always agree with each other.
Yeah.
You'll have times where you clash, where your opinion or your viewpoint and their viewpoint is not matching up. So it's like,
How do we navigate those things?
you kind of have to find a middle ground in a relationship, in any relationship. It's like you kind of have to come to like a middle ground where both parties are not hurt, but both parties are they're content in a way.
So this brings me to something like, now that we're here,
Yeah.
let's just go all in and talk about it. But how do you feel? I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it.
I feel like a lot of times uncomfortable conversations make a better society.
They do make a better society. So this actually pulls me into, I'm just going to comment on it on a micro level within love, romantic and love relationships, but even on a macro level, which is, I feel like in modern society right now, we're definitely at a low point in terms of the ability and the resilience of people to be able to just have uncomfortable conversations. And I'm going to throw my hand up and say that I'm definitely part of that problem. And I'm trying to find a way to sort of overcome that, because I feel like I go onto things like social media and I look at, it's not even memes, it's actual proper serious posts where people say, oh, if he's the right one, he'll know what to say, he'll know how to comfort you, how whatever. And I think this is really damaging, because I've got a cousin who, he's been with his partner for 33 years. He's only 9 years older than me, so it's not like he's in his 70s, he's just like hit 50. So, we're looking at probably, eight years of dating in there, and then the rest of it is marriage. So, you're still looking at about 24 years marriage. Got two very well-rounded, well-balanced, happy kids, gone to, like really good unis, all of that. They run a business together. So, all the things that you look at where people would sort of say, oh, #couple goals. And I think as I was sort of navigating love and relationships and trying to figure things out, I spoke to my cousin, and my cousin sat down. He's like, look, whatever decisions you're going to make going forward in your life, maybe me and one of our other cousins are going to have to sit you down and actually talk to you about love and relationships and what that really looks like. And I remember he said something to me which completely changed my outlook. He said, look, me and my wife been together, we're at the stage now in life where we have known each other longer than we haven't known each other. Like, there's not a lot of couples in this modern day and age who can sort of say the amount of time we've known each other is longer than we haven't known each other.
Wow.
Like, if you think of like people who've met in their late teens and they probably haven't known each other for 16 years, but to them have known each other for 30, so like the amount of time they know each other is now 2/3 of their existence on the planet. And he said, even despite that, one person can say to the other person, so that thing that you said, what did you mean? For people to have been together day in, day out and known each other for like over 3 decades, and to be like, that thing you said, for the life of me, I really don't know. Can you break it down to me? And think about a lot of us who, in the modern day and age, most people haven't been together for 33 weeks. And people are making assumptions that they might know what the person said. And on those assumptions, taking very drastic actions and judgment. Like, to me, that was an inflection point and a lesson in love and relationships of going, okay, communication's a big deal, and that actually a lot of what we're being sold on social media about love, like, oh, if the person just knows, it will feel right, and they'll know, and they'll just get it. It's just like, what are we filling people's head? What ideas are we filling people's heads with? Because I feel like we're setting people up to fail.
Social media sells you love to be a sprint, whereas love is a marathon. It's a journey. It takes time. It's hard work. You know how like an athlete has to train and prepare themselves and go through all these rigorous things and make sure that it's the same.
You have to
way.
hydrate. You have to keep the electrolyte
It's
levels
the
high.
same way with love. Like, you have to literally be. You have to come with a particular mindset where you're in this for a long run.
And you're saying that fatigue,
if you want that kind of
fatigue
relationship,
can kick
Also,
in.
it seems like as well especially with like dating apps and society as it is today, where there's a lot of options and communication isn't an option when you can just start from. People feel like they can start from scratch with someone else, or like people seem a bit more disposable, or options are more disposable. But I do agree with communication, and also we touched on this in the last podcast with Nilofer about compatibility. There's a lot of people that, like you said, people think that they're or fall in love or think they're in love because there was a right sequence of events that happened where things were just agreeable, where like, this date turned out well, this conversation turned out well, and then they feel like they have some sort of chemistry.
You can't rely on that serendipity. Like, the longer you're together,
all of that is negated from like, once you start seeing them every day, you get inoculated to the butterflies, and you get to know them as a human rather than as this romantic embodiment of of a fairy tale. It's just people being real, people being flawed. And you're just exposed to each other through time. Whereas like, the same, dating someone for 4 months or a month where you've just seen them once a week is different from seeing someone maybe a whole week straight.
Oh, I see.
If you're seeing someone once a week for a month, that's really just 4 days. Rather than, seeing someone for
once a week for 4 months.
Once a week.
16. That's basically, you've seen them for 16 days.
Yeah, exactly,
that's not a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of that perception of time makes you think, okay, maybe I should have, maybe it's not as long as I think, or maybe I don't know that person as I thought I did.
You touch on choice. So what some people have sort of touched upon is pre-social media, pre-dating apps. There just weren't as many options, and there weren't as many opportunities. I'm not saying that it's an excuse for people to. I'm not even talking about cheating. I think when you know that there's just another option around the corner, the incentives are so low to actually figure out how to communicate with someone and how to sort of get along. And just, I don't know, just to sort of figure things out.
I think nowadays people think that there's a lot of fish in the sea, but it's not like that. It's few and far between, and it's like.
I think there's less choice. I think there's never been any greater perception of choice than ever. But there's actually, I think there's less choice than there's ever been.
And a lot of people have expectations. A lot of people have expectations in what they want, what they require, what they need, which is good as well. But I always feel like the trick, the cheat code is find someone who gets you, because you know how I was talking about the middle ground, that kind of, it gets to that middle ground straight away. When you find someone who gets you, it's just like a, it's like
define gets you, because that
gets you like
I kind of get it, but it almost.
For example, you walk into a shop with your partner, and they already know what you're gonna order before you order it, because they've studied you, they know what you want, they have, like, you know, already a picture of the type of things that you like. You know what I'm saying? They get you in that sense. Or for example, it's your birthday coming up, and they get you that thing that you've been talking about, but not, you know, being blatant about it. You've been talking about it, but you've not been saying it, oh, you want to get that for your birthday. But they've already got it because they are instinctively, you know, aware of the things that you love and have an interest in. So they get you in that capacity.
I think that's one element of it, definitely. I think another one is, and this cuts both ways in terms of how you view your partner, but how they view you, but not being put on a pedestal, not putting someone on a pedestal, and a person kind of understanding your, I hate using the word flaws, but just understanding that you're not perfect, that you're human. And there still being an element of sort of, well, not an element, but there being acceptance there.
I think that's a conversation. That's a conversation a lot of people in relationships have later on, but they should have at the beginning, because it's part of the uncomfortable conversations. Like the things that you're not capable of doing, because not everyone's perfect, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like the older I get, like I had an arranged marriage, which, you know, I'm not in anymore, I'm divorced. And I still don't feel that they work for me. I still feel that there is something about meeting someone, choosing your partner, all those things. However, one of the things that I do respect about cultures, including the one that I'm from, I'm British Pakistani, what I do respect about sort of an arranged marriage system is that I still think that there is something nice. I do like the feeling of love. I'm not saying that feelings are completely nonsense or BS. But the sober conversations that are had before an arranged marriage of like, okay, what is it? What are your non-negotiables? You know, what is it that you want long term? Because in modern day and age, sometimes people get together and they're happy to catch feelings for each other, but one person may want kids and a family, and the other person doesn't want any of that. And I don't care what you say, that's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, even things like lifestyle. We brought it up on the podcast with Nilofer, because me and Nilofer talked about our respective divorces and like life post-divorce. But even taking that out of the equation, like you said, having those sorts of discussions.
that comes down to the needs, right? It comes down to the needs.
But you were saying about how, and I agree with you, that within love, you know, people might have a few good interactions, a few good dates, got a few things in common, they think that everything's cool. I would almost also argue that, like, and again, there's a lot of different configurations of relationships now. People have like casual, people are polyamorous, all those sorts of things. But if you're looking to go into something, what you want to sustain with another person, I think even going on purely on looks and purely on sexual attraction, that's going to peter out as well.
I think that's basic.
It is quite basic.
I think it's basic.
But people still don't get it. I still think I still think a good chunk of the dating pool still gets very drawn.
I mean, it's physical intimacy, right? It's physical intimacy. You see an attractive person, you're like, oh, like, you imagine all these things that you would do in a bedroom capacity or in that sort of thing. But those are that's a physical intimacy.
I guess that's something that just comes when you're young, whereas like when you're older, those things do matter in a sense, but
no, those, trust me, I know older people in their 40s who still think that way, and it hits them.
Yeah.
But
I was just gonna say, like, I've always found it funny that people judge someone by someone that looks by the way someone looks, that is qualifications for them loving them better, when that's not really qualification.
What do you mean? Elaborate on that. I think I know what you're saying, but go say it.
So just basically, obviously, people tend to go for looks because they want to be attracted to the person, but there's so many people that are more qualified to love you that maybe don't fit your idea of attractive, and people always, obviously, we see it in TV, movies, songs, and even in art, that, you know, because someone just looks good, it inspires them to love them more, but that person isn't more qualified than someone else just because they are considered more attractive.
I think it's part of the pie. Looks are part of the pie, but
It's
in the
part of a small
pie,
ratio
in the pie, it's
Yeah,
just a small amount. It's not like 50%.
It's a variable.
It's a variable. It's a small amount.
But I remember, like, I was staying in New York with a friend, and she used this phrase about what she thinks an ideal relationship looks like, where she basically said it's about finding someone to do life with. And I think that completely sort of changes the calibration because there's lots of different variables that you have to sort of look at when it comes to love, like
EQ. I feel like if a relationship does not have EQ, it's not gonna work.
But okay, so this is where, again, it's really interesting in terms of, like, so, you know,
emotional
quotient, emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence is very, very important because
it's quite rare to be, because obviously people aren't taught emotional intelligence is something they kind of have to feel out on their own.
So I think, and I'm going to catch a lot of heat for this, but I'm just going to say what I feel, which is, I think I've heard you hear a lot of complaints, largely justified, by straight women about straight men and the dating pool, and saying there's not enough emotional intelligence there. There's one aspect. And this is, I'm not trying to push back and go, oh, well, it happens with women as well, but I think across the genders, across different gender identities and sexualities, because we're living in such a limitless choice and sort of, I guess, fast food, microwave type culture in everything, I feel like the emotional intelligence is lacking across the board.
In a big way.
Because don't get me wrong, that is a separate thing about men, and particularly straight men, which we do need to sort of look at and figure out how we can turn up and have greater emotional intelligence. But then there's just a generic across the board, because of the way the culture is, in terms of, like, the amount of, I don't even know what to say and to comment on. I just worry that there isn't that level, like, people's thresholds, it feels like, are lower and lower.
Yeah, the thresholds are low. And it's such a skill to acquire as well, that some people don't have, you know, the patience to get to that level of.
But I feel like this is having bigger implications even than romantic relationships. Like, I feel like it has implications for how we turn up platonically for each other, how we turn up for our biological family, and I think it can even have implications in our working lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think you can sort of sit there and go, yeah, it just impacts things in this little kind of ring-fenced area and it doesn't have implications outside of that. I worry about, like, what you're saying with communication, with all those things. And going back to what we were talking about, like, the different variables that you need in a relationship. Like, I feel, because so much of modern dating is about finding ways to keep another person engaged and interested. For me, the true test is, how can you and another person coexist in the face of boredom?
I mean,
that's an interesting test. I'm not saying it's the only thing that matters, but it's about...
In the face of boredom.
Yeah, no, because everyday life isn't always a trip to the Shard.
Oh, I see.
And it's not, you know,
It's
like...
not like a holiday.
Like people going, oh, you know, catching a fly and catching... Whatever, it's...
I would say...
Like, I think friendship's a big, important component in a relationship.
I definitely think like it would be better if you were in love with someone that felt like your best friend.
Exactly. I would say if you have a friendship-based kind of relationship already set up before you have a relationship, then it's like you already have things in common that you can do with each other. You can go golfing, you can go swimming, you can go to the museums, you can go...
Or not.
Or
Understanding that,
chill.
okay, you know, cool,
Yeah.
that thing that you like doing, I'm not into musicals, but you know what? I want you to go out with your mates and have the best time tonight.
Yeah.
Or even just like, you know, having comfortable silences with, you know, it's very, I think probably very cliche, but just there's something there's a lot with just being with someone in a room, not saying anything, but just being together, which is very just, I don't know what it is, but
It's good to have things.
If there's a word that you have for things like this, let me know if, I think it's the word that's apt for this and you like using this word, but you would typically say it's very wholesome.
Yeah, wholesome, yeah.
How many couples can be in a room together and have uncomfortable silences? I think it's not a vast majority. I think it's a very few. Yeah. And those people that have something treasurable. Yeah. It's like a luxury.
And they're very fortunate.
It's like a
luxury.
Yeah, it's very fortunate for people to find...
But it shouldn't be a luxury, because I actually think that if you're going to be in an actual relationship where you coexist, share and build a life together, I think it's essential. Like if you can't do that, you're already starting the race with a significant handicap.
I think that's an ingredient of a healthy relationship, but a lot of relationships are not healthy. They're toxic. A majority of relationships in the world are toxic. So
Preach.
So that is what you're saying.
There's a lot of wide eyes. You see my reaction.
Is a prescription of a healthy relationship. People can be serene. People can be, you know, at peace with each other. Because I know a lot of people who are married and as soon as they get in the room together, they start arguing with each other, or they start.
Yeah, they fall into a pattern of behaviour because they didn't communicate from the first fight that they ever had. They found ways to, you know, cope in an argument, which led to toxic traits or miscommunication, and they've used that as a template for future fights further on.
Yeah, exactly. So
that first fight is important because you both test each other as partners.
They've not had uncomfortable conversations, which kind of, when you have uncomfortable conversations, what is supposed to happen is that you're supposed to come like this. But when you don't have them, and then you have other issues around, and then when you have the everything is just boiling up.
It's not just boiling up, but you know the classic comment they make about arguments, which is the thing you're arguing about is not the thing you're arguing about.
Yeah.
And I think that builds out of unexpressed resentment, unexpressed uncomfortable conversations. Even if it's okay, your subconscious does not lie. It carries the resentment where you can even potentially look for a fight, look for an argument.
Yeah.
I had something in my head. I can't really think of it now. But even just like having... Oh, could you say what you said again? Because it might jog it.
The subconscious.
The subconscious never lies. The thing you're arguing about is not the thing that you're arguing about.
It's coming. Keep talking now. I'll remember.
Okay, sorry, I can keep going. I've got no problem talking. You know, resentment can sort of build up and it will bubble into something else. Passive aggressiveness can sort of kick in.
Yeah. It's coming to me. So basically, I think when people have an argument, it's Oh yeah, that's it. De-escalation. Couples don't know how to de-escalate. They only know to add more things to the argument.
Add more things to the fire.
Yeah, and then I think it takes time for it would and things that people weren't taught how to argue. People were just taught to be heard, and to raise their voices louder when they're not. Whereas, and I've had something similar when I had a disagreement with a friend, and because they were walking away, I raised my voice. But
I can't even imagine a meta who raises his voice.
It wasn't out of anger. It was literally they're walking away, and it was raining, and I couldn't be bothered to chase them. So I was just said my thing louder.
But that's the beginning of the end.
It's like I'm shouting at them because obviously because they're carrying things for. Because obviously,
how did that end?
Our point of view, we actually sorted it out. But from that point of view, it's like anyone that's ever been shouted at feels that way anyway. Like I know what that feels like. So even though someone's just being loud, to me, I'm equating it. I'm attaching it to past experiences where I've been shouted at, and that was not from that person that shouted at me was not from a happy place. So even if I'm shouting neutrally, it feels like. Yeah,
but that's because the thing is we're all sort of carrying trauma. Like everyone's got trauma, and like the reason why your mind functions that way is the mind has to be a very efficient machine. So rather than take the time to really process and go, hang on, the way that I've been shouted at, what is that as opposed to previous? It goes straight into the filing cabinet, and it goes for the closest memory. And it goes for the memory of that, and then it'll activate you because it's trying to keep you safe because you weren't feeling safe the last time.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. And unfortunately, obviously, things with emotional intelligence, that's not taught in school. That's not taught to children. That's not taught to adults. It's not taught to people in relationships. So people kind of have to just go with their experiences, and not all the time are positive ones. So when they try to solve a situation, they only have their experiences to rely on, and it might not be the best experiences. So obviously that's how people then obviously that argument becomes an experience for them later on in life, whether they're together or not, going into future relationships. So there's this ripple or chain of events, that chain of experiences that kind of inform people then on, which then
escalates,
and then obviously ripples out into society, and then we're all just hurting each other.
One thing I love about poetry is it's a voice for suppressed emotions, and it's also like a microscopic view of the subconscious, the subconscious and the psyche. So you meet a lot of yourself in a poem. It can be your own poem, it can be someone else's poem, but you meet a lot of yourself.
So on that, there's a bunch of things I wanted to say, but I think you said something interesting about how you meet yourself in the poem. Karim, have you sort of gone back and looked through your first book that you published? Do you periodically go through it and visit the work that's in there?
I don't go back again and again, but when I go back, I'm seeing parts of who I was at that particular time.
This is what I wanted to get at, is that do you see that? Because with my book that I got coming out, my first collection in September, when I was having to go through and do the proofreading and the editing and drafting, I was having to reread the poems, and a lot of the times it was stuff I hadn't looked at in ages, because I basically pulled the book from a period of writing that went from 2020, predominantly 2020, all the way through to 2020, 2021, 22, and then snatches of things from 2023. But obviously there's a huge bulk that's from, as I'm going through it this year, that's last year, the year before, and the year before that. And I remember having my own sort of ups and downs as I was reading it, due to other external things and just internal ways that we sort of feel. And I remember just looking at it and just going, this book is like a gift to myself, because I can actually go back to this, and the poems are sometimes reminders. They are conversations that I can have with myself to remind myself I've come so far, or it's going to be okay. Because at the time, like, you can sometimes be so far removed from that moment when you've written it that you feel you're in a place that is worse. Well, it's bad, and we can catastrophize and think, oh, it's the worst, or whatever. But then you can go back and sort of, I've met myself in the book and just thought, you know what? I could be in an infinitely worse place if I hadn't created the book, because the book allows me to meet myself, and I've almost canonized key moments of insight where it's almost like me therapizing myself when I can't go see a therapist. So I think there is something beautiful about poetry in particular as a piece of art.
Writing itself is time traveling. It's time traveling. It's
such a line as well.
It's literally, you're seeing, if this was like a drawing board, you're seeing that section.
But even within that, what I would say is that it's not linear time traveling.
Yeah, it's not linear.
There are times when I write where I feel like I have literally violently gone through a wormhole, like way into the future. There's other times when I've gone into the past. So like, people ask me in my book, like, okay, so what's the story out of me? What's the timeline? And I'm like several hundred years before I was born, all the way up to the present. I mean, if I said, hey, it's the future as well, it'd be like, he's just pretentious, just shut up. So I sometimes have to hold back. But there is that. But one thing I wanted to say, if we're talking about time traveling, jumping through timelines of what we were talking about with love and relationships, albeit I'm in a very happy relationship currently. But even through this relationship and this experience, I've learned that there's almost, I'd say, one's a definite non-negotiable, the other one's a pretty strong one as well, depending on people's access. But my thing is, if you haven't read all about love, and if you haven't had at least some form of therapy, I'm not dating the person. Like I feel like when I read all about love,
that's understandable.
No, it's hugely understandable, because I think when I read it, it just cleared certain things up for me about, because it's not just that it gives you a very good grounded and adult understanding of love, but I think just by virtue of even reading it and absorbing what Bell Hooks has to say, she talks about the importance of just love in general. And she really, like, you know, not everyone may agree with her, like she's quite critical of a lot of things in pop culture, but she even found it really difficult, even in the 80s, that, you know, we had a song that was hitting the charts by Tina Turner where everyone's just basically, like, it's an anthem for men and women to go, what's love got to do with it?
I love Tina Turner's What's Love Got to Do.
No, I love Tina Turner, I love the tune. But it's very hard to argue with Bell Hooks' deconstruction of the song, which is to actually say that it shows how far we've fallen as a culture, when, you know, that's the anthem that we might belt out at a party, where we're basically saying, what's love got to do with it? It's nothing but a second-hand emotion.
Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken?
Yeah.
I mean, they're bars. I mean,
no, they're bars, but it.
But I think it's the way Tina Turner's singing it as a song. It's like, obviously that's not. I don't think that's how she feels. But at the time, it's a momentary thing. It's encapsulating a slice of a moment where someone's going through heartbreak or
no, I get that.
But it's only momentary.
But it's the way the culture took it and ran with it and made it an anthem.
Yeah, that's true. And then that's the breakdown of society and the breakdown of relationships, and people not compromising and people not communicating because love is not important. Love is a substitute. It's not a priority. It's not.
Yeah. Also, it's kind of hard in a day and age when, like, love is commodified.
Yeah, commodified.
It's
in what way is it commodified?
It's
and
sold
how's
as
that?
a holiday like Valentine's Day. It's sold as chocolates. It's sold as perfume. It's sold as an experience. It's sold as so many things that.
But this also goes back to another, like the current capitalistic system that we live under has got us completely hoodwinked into, you're always meant to feel good. Oh, you don't feel good? Buy this.
Yeah. Or it's a thing to buy to apologize to someone.
Yeah, but also just sometimes love doesn't feel good because you are developing a bond with someone where, yeah, you know what? If that person gets ill or they die, it's going to hurt. You know, if you're going through a spot of bother where maybe your needs aren't, it's going to hurt, but it's just, I don't know, it's pain and discomfort is something, and I'm having to learn this.
It's an oxymoron, basically. It's an oxymoron.
Yeah. But as someone who really spent most of my life like really grappling with quite difficult mental health issues and issues around just how I feel, and having certain neurodivergent conditions which add to my sort of the volatility of how I feel inside. As I sort of look at things like relationships and love and deconstruct, I'm finding lessons in there, which is you cannot avoid discomfort.
It's part of the package.
Yeah.
It's part of the package, but I feel like we're in a culture where, again, even going beyond love, going beyond relationships, where, like, someone said something, someone I know who is a friend, but he's quite a wise guy. He's like a healer and a clinician and a therapist. And he said that we literally now have young people jumping on planes, traveling because it's Instagram worthy and it will look good for the gram. They're not traveling to go experience a new culture, to try new cuisine and live. And it goes back to, there's a superficiality and a lack of depth to the way that we're being told to approach life. And I'm not immune to it. Like I definitely have learnt sort of maladaptive responses to trauma where I try and basically shut bad things out and numb myself or avoid certain things. But the older I get, I'm also realizing like I am denying myself certain aspects of joy which are a part of life. They're gifts in life. And I think like we're trying to avoid so much bad stuff.
Yeah, real life experiences have to be lived, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, real life experiences have to be lived. And you won't always be happy. Like, you'll have good days, bad days. But yeah, there's so many a range of emotions. It's just like, so many a range of emotions exist in one human being. It's like, you can get so exhausted sometimes.
I'm just kind of curious, you know, when you write your love poetry, do you write about someone, a past love, or is it an amalgamation, or just in the song, just kind of inspired?
I like to be, when I write about love, I like to write from past, present, and future. Sometimes I like to delve into the relationships I've seen around me and to reflect on them and to take little bits and pieces of what I saw in those relationships and hopefully create something like a collage of hopefuls. And for me, I've always found that people back in the days, the way they experienced love is way different than the way we experience love nowadays.
I agree.
I feel like there was more authenticity to it. There was a level of depth. There was more care. There was more. There's a speciality to it. Like, for example, because I grew up in a Muslim household. I'm a Muslim. I consider myself a Muslim. I've always admired the way Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Khadija, their relationship kind of gelled and bonded and was kind of formatted. There's a speciality to it. And in nowadays society, it's very hard to find that with obviously with the birth of social media, with high expectations, with cost of living, with all these things, all these variables around that kind of make love way more complicated than it needs to be. And love as well is not as always simple. Love is not always simple. It's hard work. So
it's hard work, but I think I do agree that there's something that seems to be lost in understanding the work and the patience of love. But at the same time, I'm sometimes reluctant to sort of idealize things in the past, because there's a lot of things that people put up with that they didn't have to, but due to the way social structures were set up, there was like a, I'm quoting a meme. There was some meme or something saying, look, you know, your grandparents, they weren't necessarily in love. It's just that your grandmother couldn't file for divorce. And I think there's a balance somewhere in the middle. I think maybe I'm biased because I come from South Asian culture, and like patriarchy still is quite a big thing. And I was at a festival recently, Anhad, in Slough, where, you know, just talking to some of my elders, and they were like, look, I'm glad that younger people, particularly younger women, have more choice. I think it's about trying to find healthy balances, because I think in the past there wasn't any choice.
yeah,
But I think there also was a stronger level of like potentially emotional intelligence, because we didn't have, I mean, like, even if you're not ADHD like me, social media has really wrecked and played with people's, like, it's manipulated people's dopamine fixes and their need for dopamine. And so within that, you know, that impacts even like how people approach dating and relationships.
it's lowered people's spirit, and it's also made people's perception of reality. It's distorted people's perception of reality.
Yeah. It's distorted reality, but it also,
But then again,
like when you see men and women, by the way,
I'll say
who have loads of like pictures of themselves, particularly. It's one thing, maybe you're a photographer and you're like documenting things, but you're like, well, you like to be in a relationship with this person if this person's always snapping things to the gram, or if they seem to throw up 20 stories a day of just them going about their business. Like, that's got to be really a little bit jarring. I don't know.
Or you can take a...
I was gonna say television as well has contributed. I wouldn't blame social media completely. I would say television.
How so?
Television, Hollywood, films,
Just like how it's been written.
music videos, certain things of how love should be, or whatever love is, or what this is not reality. It's all fanatical. It's all made up. It's all, you know, it's got elements of toxicity to it.
Toxicity, yeah.
Yeah, toxicity.
But in what way? Like, when you talk about, say, music videos, the first thing that I would lazily almost comes to mind is just like, even just the commodification of like women's bodies. But is there something beyond that you're finding problematic within, say, music videos? Because we're talking about love as opposed to...
I'll say that as well, and then I'll say in terms of how some music videos are displayed, with the whole idea of for example, a lot of rappers, they don't value the women they put in their videos. They just use them.
That's been a problem for time.
Yes, they don't value the women they put in their videos. They just use them for that, you know, for the commercial purposes. And as well, if they even talk about love, they talk about it in such a degrading way. They talk about it in such a, it's meaningless.
I mean, it kind of falls into the kind of like society's expectations. So I can't remember what video I was watching. I think it was like Fredo, and He has a song called Quarter Past Three, samples Donnell Jones, but it's like, I'm just using Fredo as an example. I actually like his music, but like the rappers in that and the singer, it's talking about what I can get you. So I like I'm looking for a wifey, but like this is what I can get you. So come this way, like you know, kind of like you can live this lifestyle. Like,
Okay,
this, you can have that kind of thing.
so this touches upon something which is the transactional nature that it's sort of almost created.
Mm-hmm.
And then that isn't then instilled into people, not just boys, but anyone that thinks relationships are transactional because obviously things are being.
It's like a bug. It's a bargain. It's a bargaining chip. It's a purchasing thing, and it's like love is way more than that. Love is way more than that.
But then this falls into, hey, I'm having to bring this person up, so I'm giving them like free advertising, but that's what then allows those bigger narratives to be built on by online influencers like Andrew Tate, because their thing is, come follow us, we'll show you surefire, quick ways to make money. And then if you have money, then you can acquire, you know, the attention or the, you know, of women.
Also, like someone like Dan Bilzerian as well.
He's the guy with the beard, right?
Guy with the beards, just basically, I don't know what he does really, but he just has money, and it's.
I know who you're talking about. He's like always on a boat with scantily clad women.
And they're just there like decoration. They're not. I'm sure they're not there for. I mean, some sort of conversation, but they're just kind of like used to decorate the yacht or the space that he's in, and they're taking pictures and stuff. So it's like, what is he actually getting from that? Apart from just, you know, maybe he's just a very lonely person. But I mean,
sometimes as well, I think some people hide their trauma in money. So they will acquire all this mass amount of wealth, but they've got a lot of trauma. They need a lot of healing. And then they'll distract themselves with things. And then it will look like as if they're doing well. But it's like that thing that they should be doing, they're not doing. So they're doing this. And it's like later on in life, they fall into depression, or they have gambling addictions, or they have all these things because they're trying to compromise.
Yeah, well, I mean,
they're trying to compensate that trauma. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
That trauma is still there, but it's like, let me be rich.
Yeah,
let me do this.
It's better to be rich and lonely than to be poor and lonely or something.
Yeah.
Well, it goes even deeper than that. Like when you start reading work on like trauma by authors like Pete Walker, who's a psychotherapist, and Nicola Perro, who's a psychotherapist as well. What they talk about is, and I think Dr. Gabor Mate, who talks about addiction, and he says that addiction, the root of it is trauma. So all of this comes back to trauma, which is within trauma, we end up having very, we have these responses, some of which, like, for example, being a workaholic, it's not just an addiction, but it's a trauma response.
Yeah.
Because you'll have some trauma in the past which made you feel like you're not enough. And that's not to say that I'm against the pursuit of earning money. Like, we all want to basically live comfortable lives. We don't want, you know, lives that are underpinned by economic insecurity are very anxious existences. And an anxious existence is only going to lead to more stress and cortisol in your body, and your body is going to be a house for illness and disease rather than potentially a home for, I don't know, joy and creativity and magic. But yeah, these responses, like going back to, like, you know, our shared faith as Muslims, it's not anti-earning money, but what it does talk about is a balanced outlook of, like, not to hoard wealth, not to just amass it for the sake of amassing it.
Yeah.
And it's still, there are mechanisms for redistributing wealth and trying to look after more vulnerable people in society.
Absolutely.
But at the moment, what we're looking at in whatever's passing for capitalism now, it feels like more and more wealth is getting concentrated in fewer and fewer hands.
Yeah, and that has so many negative implications. Like
how much is enough?
Like how much is enough? And for example,
and you're right. There must be there's no way you can look at someone like a Jeff Bezos and go, "You are a well-rounded, functional, happy human being."
Yeah, no.
Yeah, or Elon Musk as well.
Yeah.
Oh, don't even get me started on him.
There's a level of deranged to it. There's a level of insanity to that kind of person. There's a level of insanity, and it's the mechanism of capitalism is insane as well. So it's like too many machines happening, too many things happening that create that kind of characteristic, that person.
And it's like, when you have that much money, why are you even still trying to get more? At this point, you can't even spend it faster than, it's coming in faster than you're spending it.
But also what worries me with some of this wealth acquisition is some of the things that get done with it. Like if you're Jeff Bezos and you made that money, you've now decided to go spend $250 million to buy the Washington Post. So what are the implications for democracy and freedom of expression?
You're lacking human qualities when you
look at Bezos, and I'd always joke, that's a real life Lex Luthor.
No, for real, he is. Cause
bold. Yeah. But the thing is that it's not enough. It's just difficult. I don't know what the answers are.
There's no humanness to it.
Because I also feel like I worry about, I don't know, I'm definitely more to the left than to the right. And there's elements of socialism I like, and there's even elements of capitalism that I get. I don't mean get rich, die trying, but I think even in religions like ours, it encourages trade. It encourages, exchanging goods and ideas for currency and all these things. So it's not some kind of Star Trek, utopia that Islam, for example, pushes. But the level to which, on one hand, I worry. I do think we should have things like public health care.
Absolutely.
I don't want it. But at the same time, I sometimes get what right-wing libertarians worry about when the government and the state gets way too involved in telling us what we can and can't do. At the same time, I'm not sure I feel particularly great about high net worth individuals having disproportionate amounts of influence on education, on media and medicine and all these sorts of things, because you're putting too much power into one set of person's hands. And I think we've equated people who've been able to amass wealth with, well, these are the greatest minds of our time. That I find really, really disturbing.
I find that problematic as well.
Very problematic. These guys are not the same as Einstein, Oppenheimer, Isaac Newton,
Nikola Tesla.
Tesla. These are not. I mean, Tesla in particular, because Tesla, unlike Edison, Tesla wanted to bring positive change with his discoveries. He wasn't actually trying to monetize it. That was, I believe, Edison was more hell-bent on monetizing the inventions.
Edison was the business mind, and Tesla was more social community mind. And he wanted to basically make us all have free electricity. So all these companies wouldn't exist. All these.
So, did you know there's a light bulb, one of the oldest light bulbs in America? I think it's in a fire station, but it's never gone off. You've never needed to change it.
Was that from Tesla?
I can't remember if it's from Tesla, but basically, when they started making light bulbs, light bulbs, they literally can go on for years, but obviously there's no money in that. You have to kind of build in
obsolescence into
products so that people buy more. So
exactly.
they started doing that, but that one in the fire station has never gone off, and they've kept it on, as a kind of a tradition thing. But if they wanted to kind of make things to last, they would, but because there's no money in it.
Yeah.
They don't.
I even think he got killed because he was smarter than the government, which a lot of people get
Nikola
killed.
Tesla?
Yeah, a lot of people get killed because they're smarter than the government.
What were the circumstances of his death?
Unexpected.
Like, is it like natural causes or just the...
They just found him dead one day. That's what they
Someone
say.
conveniently found
But
him.
I think they killed him.
CIA, when you look at the American government and it's...
But what era was Tesla alive in?
He was an outsider as well. He was alive in the 18th century. He was
18th, so maybe not.
Yeah.
CIA,
He was an outsider as
So
well.
1900s, basically.
He was from Croatia, Serbia, Croatian, living in America, in New York.
Sorry, no, 17th century, that's 1700s.
And he was different. He was eccentric. He was intelligent.
But that's the same when you look at Oppenheimer or Einstein, or sort of any of these sort of interesting minds. And I think a lot of the people that are being sort of put up on a pedestal, that we're worshipping people who've just been able to basically build businesses. And I'm not saying that businesses aren't a good thing, but it's the ways in which people build their dominance. It's not done ethically, and people aren't.
I don't think Elon Musk is a brainiac. I don't think he's super smart. I think he profits off other people's ideas.
That's what companies do now. Like, have you ever, when I was doing retail, you know, when you sign those contracts, anything you create while you work there is not your intellectual property, it's theirs. So it's the same with like all these tech companies and things. So anything that someone creates under being paid from that you know, institution, organization, like that's not theirs. It belongs to the company, the organization. So yeah, they're literally.
But this is just another reason why I don't want to work for someone again.
Yeah, for sure. So it's scary. It's scary. I did want to bring it back to Karim and the poetry though, because we can talk about this for ages. But obviously
it's good going off the tangents.
Huh? Yeah,
it's good going off the tangents.
We'll go on another one. I'm sure we'll go on a tangent in a bit. But like, obviously you're Ugandan, so there's not a lot of Ugandan poets I know. How much does your culture influence your writing and your poetry?
That's a good question. So I've got a really well-known poem called Her Name is Uganda, and that poem I wrote in 2016.
Okay.
And I would say my culture influences my writing in terms of I like to reflect on the time I've visited Uganda, and I like to incorporate all the sounds I heard in Uganda, all the you know, little happenings that were happening on the street, and small bits and pieces, like for example electricity running out, or people you know, having like a fight outside because because Uganda's big on football.
Okay.
So people having a fight because their team lost, or something.
They're having a fight for?
Because their team lost. Someone having a fight because their team lost.
Yeah, I mean, similar to like any culture that has into cricket or into football.
Yeah, I've seen it in both of those cultures.
I've incorporated those little things in my writing, and as well, I'll say my mother bought me an encyclopedia actually when I was young, and that kind of changed my life because I was exposed to different cultures and through the encyclopedia, and I was exposed to knowledge, and I was exposed to learning about different things. And so in my writing, I don't just incorporate my own culture. I try and incorporate different things that I've seen. When I was young, I'm still influenced by Japanese culture. So
like anime and stuff.
Animes and cars and, you know, the whole technology that they've got there, the art, everything. So that as well has found its way into my writing. And yeah, I'm just a person that's like absorbing the whole entire earth and making sure that I'm giving you the reality I see, even though you may interpret it differently.
I mean, is there any Ugandan poets that you kind of gravitate to, or writers that you're aware of that?
No, unfortunately, when I was young, when I was a bit younger, there were not any writers that write the way I write now, and I've always wanted to be like I've always wanted to write the way someone else would have written if I was younger and I had someone to look up to. So I've always had that in mind. There were not that many writers I could look up to that were Ugandan, period.
Okay, but then outside of Ugandan, I mean, like you've discussed that like Warsan Shire is definitely an influence. What other writers would you say have influenced you?
Oh, good question. Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison, Caroline Duffy, Margie Percy, Margaret Atwood.
There's a poet you were telling me about before. I forgot the name, but was it Brazilian or something? Latina?
Ada Lemon. Recently, Naira Wahid, Yesa Daily Ward. There's so many poets I can name that have influenced me one way or the other.
That's beautiful.
But it's interesting that I've been influenced mostly by women. Mostly throughout my whole life, I've been influenced by mostly women. I think it's more to do with there's certain stylistic devices that I've noticed and I've picked up on from that type of literature.
Such as?
Such as the level of detail of care when it comes to interactions in dialogue, in writing, the level of empathy that a lot of women writers put into their writing, or the level of attention to detail of describing a scene. It could be like walking into a theatre or walking into like a conflict that's happening. I've just always been influenced by that, and I've tried to emulate that, and my writing is just, for example, on social media, 90% of my followers are women. That's not an accident. It's because I've been influenced by women my whole life. So women naturally gravitate towards my writing.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's been a blessing to hear feedback and for them to be receptive of my work.
Because I think over the time that I've been sort of observing your work, whether I've been in the crowds and I've been lucky enough to sort of hear you read and to hear you perform, looking at your work online, where, as Meta said, you're quite open with sharing your work. You're not kind of hiding it behind and go, no, buy my book. And also just listening to the influences that you're rattling off, like writers. I've always felt like more than a lot of people on quote unquote the scene, you're incredibly skilled on the page, and then you're also able to perform really well, but in a way that is your unique style, rather than you going, okay, this is the accepted style, how do I now rehearse and get good at it? And I think in all the time that I've been talking to different poets in the scene, interviewing them on our respective podcasts, you remind me a lot of Charney, in the sense that if I were to start taking like a straw poll from all the poets, like, okay, who do you read? You know, which writers influence you and so forth. Like, what I like about you and Charney is that you guys have really extensively read and studied a lot of great writers, not just past, but even certain contemporary ones that have been just phenomenal in page poetry. So, for example, Warsa Daily Ward is, someone who's a very skilled writer. Numerous other names you sort of brought up. There's just too many to sort of recall. And I personally am beginning to believe, because I recently read On Writing by Stephen King.
Yeah.
And his big thing, and of course, Charney says this, and Charney's also read the book. If you're going to write, you really should be reading a lot.
Yeah.
And I think I'm definitely in a season of my life where, as much as I don't necessarily think TV and film are bad ways to use your time. I think that there is great TV that is exceptional writing and storytelling and characterization, and with film. But there's also a lot of rubbish that is just a time sink. And I've been finding myself very recently, the time where I might sit down and just kind of watch something to fill some time in, I'm reading, and I'm really enjoying reading.
Reading is it's a skill, and as well it's
a muscle. It's like going to the gym. You build it.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people can't. Some people find it difficult to read, basically.
Yeah.
For many reasons, and like you said, like with writing and reading, I feel like they two go. They're brothers and sisters. You see what I'm saying? You can't have one without the other, and they fuel each other as well. They give fuel. Like if you're a writer, you need to read. If you're a reader, you need to write. Like it's one of those.
Yeah, look, I think
it's one of those
if you're a
things.
reader, a bit like if you're someone who listens to music, you will reach a point where you're like, let me try my hand at this.
Exactly.
And I think there's a really humorous moment I mentioned to Charney in the Stephen King book on writing, where he said that basically there's one moment that every writer will never forget. It's that moment when you read, and you read someone who potentially has published their work, and you actually are like, this is actually really bad, and I could do a lot better. Because it's that turning point where you're like, throw my ring into the hat, pick up my pen and write. But I think in terms of the importance of reading, in terms of how it informs your writing, I definitely feel like over the last 3 years, my writing style evolved, but I'm now at a point where I feel like I need to read and expose myself to other writers, both poets but prose, because if I don't, I can pretty much stay locked in writing in the exact same style, cadence, vocabulary, frame of reference, all of that. And you can just start repeating yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I believe so. There comes a point where you meet a certain type of, like, you have this potential, right? And that potential was only then increased once you kind of leave comfort zones and push boundaries and experiment. And I think once you have a basic knowledge of writing, you carry on, you write, you get better, then you learn about this technique, you learn about this type of thing, then you try to write it in that way, you get better, then okay, what's the next thing I can go into? And it's just about expanding your range, and that comes with time. So yeah, it's like flexing.
I feel like writing has become part of my identity. I can't separate myself from something that has had such an impact on my life.
Yeah.
And it's as well, writing is such it's a luxury in itself.
Yeah.
And it's as well, it's a necessity. It's a necessity because it makes you see the world different. It makes you come across yourself in different ways. And as well, writing, it kind of gives you a platform, it gives you a voice, of course, but it can give you confidence going forward in life. Like, for example, when I first started writing, the only person that I was going to give my work to was Hannah, and Hannah gave me that boost of confidence.
Is this Hannah Gordon?
No.
Right.
This is a Hannah that people don't know.
I was wondering, like, where's Hannah now? Like, does she come to your shows?
Hannah is on my Instagram. She's a mysterious person. I'm not gonna out her. There's a few Hannahs on my Instagram.
Yeah.
So you won't be able to find her.
But
I have no desire to sort of pull that identity.
But Hannah still, till this day, likes my posts. She's the first person to ever read my poetry. Yeah. But her kind words, her being there when I needed to send pieces of work to, that's what I mean. Writing can boost your confidence, and over time, you're gonna write more and more, and then if you want to pursue it, you're gonna read more and more, and then that's also gonna be, that's gonna enhance your writing. Yeah. That's gonna put your writing on another gear.
For sure.
And then again, writing becomes a thing where it's not just something you do, but it's who you are.
100%. I want to also touch on, like, you are someone in the poetry scene. You're someone in the poetry scene who has contributed quite a bit in terms of just people experiencing poetry events. You've shared your poetry. People have been inspired by you. But I recently had Meredith on, and I wanted to, and also Speakeasy is a part, comes at a time when I tried to branch out of, BYOB, come to smaller events, which then also grew into an amazing event, and then I met you there. Do you want to talk about, like, how you and Meredith met and how you came into Speakeasy and your time there?
That's a good question. Me and Meredith were friends on Instagram, and then one day Meredith put out a post, basically, who wants to go on a walking on a walking trip with me, basically. And I responded to it, and then we started this thing where we have a ritual Monday walking thing where we go out in nature, and we just talk about whatever comes to mind, and it's a me and Meredith thing. And then from that, Meredith told me about Speakeasy and that kind of the platform that she was building at the time, and then I got involved, and I was really excited. Yeah, we were talking, and I told her I do poetry, I do workshops, I do performances, I mentor people, I do all these things, and it's all because I believe I'm here for a higher reason. I believe I'm here to help people. I believe I'm here to inspire people. If I can inspire people in that kind of, in the best way, and also I believe that I'm here to put something in the world that was not there before.
Yeah.
Better for the world. So I was talking to Meredith about all these aspirations and dreams and all these things, and then from there our relationship just blossomed.
Cool. What I really liked about what she said was, depending on how you're feeling, you go one direction or a different direction on your walks, which I found was really cute. Like, obviously that's a personal, like, thing, I don't know, but, like, was there a walk that you found that was, like, really helpful, whether that be for writing or just to make you feel better? I'm a big fan of walking.
I feel like all the walks we've had have always been beneficial. They've always been meaningful and enjoyable and authentic. I love Meredith so much. Like,
shout out to Meredith.
Such a special person, unique person.
And Meredith and Speakeasy have just been a big contributor to the poetry scene as we know it now. Like, it's grown so much, and it's missed right now because Meredith's in Canada.
How long for?
I believe, I don't really want to say, but Meredith will be back soon.
And didn't their nights like win an award for the best night or something at Wordplay and Flow? Or
Yeah, it won an award for best poetry platform or best
Yes,
poetry.
Speakeasy has won an award, best
at Wordplay and Flow.
Best poetry night.
Amazing.
It's come a long way, still growing. And I feel for me it's one of the best.
Yeah,
it's one
I
of the
agree.
best poetry nights out there.
It was one of the, I've got like, it's on my channel, like one of the first times I went, and either you or Federico, I remember meeting one of you two there for the first time, or maybe you both were there at that time, and just because I came from BYB being a big place, and then we recently talked about, Chocolate Poetry Club, it being one of those places where it was like big, there was loads of people, but going to an event like Speakeasy, which was smaller and intimate, and I really loved it. As an introvert, I liked it because it meant not doing the thing that I usually do at BYB, where I go, "Hi, liked your poem. What's your Instagram?" Then go on to find someone else. Because there was less people, I had time to like have a little conversation, talk to people, follow them on Instagram, and then meet someone, find someone else that I liked, and then follow them, have a conversation, and also like just the vibe. It was just very, again, like Haroon said, wholesome. What was your first experience going to Speakeasy for the first time?
It was free flowing.
Yeah.
It was come with the vibe, come as you are, like be yourself. It really harbors that space for you to just, read whatever you want to read, whatever's going on in your life, whatever you've got going on. I feel some other platforms you can't really
do that.
You can't really do that to the full extent. You can't come in your entirety.
Why not? And
because,
what is it that you think
because
they're
I feel
looking
like those platforms have this air of like you need to fit in. You need to come with you need to be in the house style. If your work,
I like that word, house style.
Yes,
if your work is not within those parameters, if your work is not within that kind of performance style or that kind of, reflection.
Whereas Speakeasy London is
more like
come as you
all
are.
welcoming. It's all free flowing. It's all come as you are. Be yourself.
I've not been yet. I think I need to go.
Yeah. Well, it'll be back when Meredith comes back. But we mentioned in a previous podcast that I thought Speakeasy was very inclusive. It made people feel very comfortable. Brought all types of people together, and I think I do miss it. And I had to travel to East to go there, and that says a lot. To get to East just for a poetry event, and it was really nice and small, and I kind of do miss like just. I felt also very, Haroon, when you go to a poetry event, and people know you, but I kind of miss the days when I wasn't known, and people didn't know who you were, and going to Speakeasy for the first. Yeah, I do. I kind of miss it. I kind of miss that anonymity. And
I get anxious with that at times.
Do you?
Socially, depending on where I'm sitting on the spectrum of my feelings at a given point in time.
Yeah, Speakeasy was like that for me for the first few events. I was just like, no one knew me, so I could just be human. Yeah. Whereas when you go to, I do have this kind of not again, but when I go to an event and then people know who I am, it's nice to feel at home. But also it's kind of like, because they know who I am, I feel like I'm already there's expectations to fit in people's boxes, to be that love poet, to be the video guy.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was going to events where people didn't know me, my poetry had more potential in terms of I could do whatever.
You're more of a butterfly when people don't know you than when people know you. You're more, you're more stuck in a box, kind of.
And I do like the idea of like this house style. Like people go to events and subscribe to the house style, and then if they go there frequently, they feel like they have to kind of emulate that in their work, when really they should actually do the opposite, or actually just be themselves. Because, you know, I mean, there's different poetry events for different types of people, and you only get to know that once you start branching out. But if you're only going to one poetry event, you can't let that alone like inform your poetry.
One of the problems I've got is when people stick to one event and they don't go to other events. It's because you're limiting your chances of growth. You're limiting your chances of improving your work and also meeting new people. And if you only go to one event, you're gonna only experience that one thing, and it's like you're killing all the chances you could have had.
Similar to like reading, you can't just like read one type of person or one type of book. Like, you should read all types of books. And that informs your writing the same way you should go to different types of events that will inform your writing and your performance, and even just who you are and who you are not as a person, as a writer, as a poet. It's just about just, and also like meeting people, networking. Because then, if you do have aspirations to write or read a book, write a book, be published, then some people have already done that, so you can pick their brains. And
there's also another thing I've got that bothers me is there's this famous poet that I'm not gonna name that everyone,
not on camera right now.
I mean, you
that everyone reads, but in the poetry circles, they're not credited, or they're not acknowledged as a poet of high importance. They're just a poet that people see, and their work is, I wouldn't say superficial, but their work is not. It lacks.
It's just all surface level.
It lacks a certain depth to it. It as well. It's got so much critique that people are not sure whether they've actually experienced all of those things that they talk about.
and I think it's like someone with like a big following as well.
Yeah.
So I understand. Yeah, it feels like they just kind of like wrote a few things, got big, and then like, oh, now I can get book deals and things like that. Yeah. I think we're on the same page.
I think we might be, but when the camera goes off, which
when the camera goes off. Is there anything else that you think people should know about you, Karim, as a poet before we end the podcast? Or as a person, basically.
Never underestimate me.
Okay, so why that?
So
has that happened?
Many times.
And when we say underestimate, as an artist or as a person,
as a person, as a writer, as an artist,
like people taking liberties with you, thinking that you're just like you're super like, oh, he's soft.
Yeah.
I'm asking because you know De La Soul.
Yeah, De La Soul.
Do you remember their first album? They were like wearing flowery shirts, and it was like the Daisy Age, and they were super hippies. So apparently, during that era, when they put that album out,
and the antithesis to what was before in terms of image, right?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, that's their image. They're eclectic. They're into a whole bunch of different stuff. But apparently on tour, people would try and test them. Oops. And they gave some beatdowns, I've been told. Underestimated.
Yeah, exactly.
I think once you're confident in yourself, if you're someone that knows how to fight, right, you don't need to care about what you wear or what you say. You can just be yourself because you know yourself. You can defend yourself. And I think when people are insecure, they tend to do a whole bag of lies or deceit or just.
Unless you're Prince, you can wear whatever you like and you don't need to fight either.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
that's true.
You'd look pretty stupid trying to punch Prince because.
But this is the thing, isn't it? It would be the height of absurdity. Like you're going to look like the dickhead.
Yeah, you're going to look like the dickhead, and then also like there's no honor in trying to like beat someone like that. Like like what are you proving? You're proving nothing.
I think you probably got to write a song about it.
Yeah.
Probably a whole
Yeah,
album.
probably make
Put it out next week.
Yeah.
To not to underestimate you, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, never underestimate me.
Also, because I think you're the right person to ask this, like, for people that don't know about you but have loved you through this podcast, or people that love you and know you now, what are any recommendations, on whether that be writing or, going to a museum, like just anything that you would recommend for people to try out or go to or see or watch or listen to, book, music, artist?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I'll say spend some time free writing.
Okay.
Spend some time free writing. For anyone that doesn't know what a free write is basically when you get a piece of paper and then you write the first thing that comes to your mind, and you keep writing.
No censorship, no critic, you just keep writing.
No judgment whatsoever, you just keep writing. It could be cheese, it could be chair, it could be church, it could be cats, it could be whatever. You just keep writing. What I usually do, I wake up early in the morning and then I just free write. So I free write, and whatever I've experienced in my dreams, my sleeping dreams, goes on the page, or what I saw last night goes on the page. In terms of going to see something, I would recommend go and see, if you live in London, go and see the Diva exhibition at the V&A Museum. It's on right now. I would recommend that. And as well, if you live in London, go to the British Library to see an exhibition on art merged with science and sounds.
Cool.
It's a really cool exhibition, actually.
Is that going on right now?
It's going on right now, and it's going to end at the end of this month.
Okay, cool. When this comes
So
out,
really, by the time this podcast comes out, people will not have been able to see it at the end of August.
I would recommend in general just go to see museums. Like Saatchi is one of my favourites. British Library I've been to a few times, yeah. It's a beautiful space architecturally. So you could just go there whenever.
Absolutely.
Just take yourself out on artist dates, what Julia Cameron talks about, really.
And as well, I'd recommend go to poetry events. See all the different poets that are there, talk to the poets.
100.
Yeah, go to poetry events. If you can, even perform. So you never know what you can learn.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, let people know.
So you can find me at Karim Leo Poetry, Karim Leo, as like the star sign, poetry, on Instagram and Twitter.
We love ourselves. I can be found on Instagram at Haroon Creates. That's Haroon Creates. And also at Speak Easy with Haroon. That's again Haroon spelled Haroon. The first Instagram handle is just all of the creative stuff that I do. And obviously Speak Easy with Haroon is the podcast. In addition, hit me up on DMs if you want to check out. By the time this goes out, this will have been out. My debut poetry collection, Press Play.
Amazing.
Huge amounts of love and thought have gone into this, and I just can't wait to share it with people. I'm really, really excited.
It's going to be sick. And you can follow me at the Metaforest, the Metaphorest, metaphor with a PH, all one word, at Instagram and YouTube. Make sure you follow and subscribe to get any notices about what I'm doing next in terms of poetry events, videos, podcasts. Obviously the Metaforecast, forecast with the FO, all one word on YouTube, and Poetry and Shibs, Window to the Spirits, and scratch that if I have a page for it already. Thank you so much. Be good to yourselves, and we'll see you soon.
Be well.
Bye.
Thank you.
Peace.
Bye.
Yay. That's good. I love it.